Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. The frustration that people are experiencing in my electorate in the growing southwest region of Sydney is clear to see. Last week's figures released in the Telecommunications Ombudsman annual report listed both Liverpool and Campbelltown as being in the top 10 postcodes for complaints. In fact, the only areas in the electorate with positive feedback are those with fibre to the premises, and they were part of the original rollout. Recently, I held an NBN forum in Werriwa. Even on a very cold night, over 100 people attended. 30 more contacted my office to provide apologies and seek further support. The forum was attended by a representative of the NBN, and I thank her for her presentation and willingness to answer questions for my constituents. But it was clear from this forum and the inquiries my office is dealing with every day that the NBN providers and retailers are failing every segment of my electorate, and this is creating a difference in the experience of our residents. Elderly residents are confused as why they need to change the phone and medical alert devices. Technicians show up but don't ensure the phones are put in the most convenient places in the house, or even that they work properly. Young people are being promised and paying for speeds which are just not being delivered. NBN Co says this is because the retailers are not buying enough bandwidth or because there's still ADSL on the line. However, the fact is they aren't getting what they were promised. My office has received in excess of 300 inquiries since June alone, when we began promoting the NBN forum. Regardless of the issues with the NBN or the telecommunication providers, the sheer scale of issues that have been raised is astonishing, ranging from issues with installation, technician appointments, the quality of installation and the speed and the reliability of connections. One of the most consistent issues raised come from constituents with hybrid fibre coaxial or HFC connections. These are used when existing pay TV or cable network users can be used, and this can be used as the final connection for the NBN. Multiple constituents who have been using an existing ADSL connection have been switched over to HFC before the connection was correctly activated, thereby leaving them without any phone or internet connection, sometimes for weeks at a time. This is particularly prevalent in Macquarie Fields and Hinchinbrook, in my electorate. When finally the connection does work, many of my constituents are so disappointed to find their service quality is in fact significantly diminished with this connection. The difficulties with switching households to HFC has been disastrous for the elderly in particular. The lack of access to a phone connection is creating a great deal of anxiety for older constituents and their families, as they frequently don't have mobile phones and don't want them and rely on their landline for cases of emergency. There is also ongoing confusion about how the NBN will interact with the special need devices, such as landlines for the hearing impaired, which the NBN Co have failed truly to clarify for many of the constituents in my electorate. Many young families moving into new neighbourhoods in my electorate are discovering that their new NBN-ready properties are not actually ready at all. In Edmondson Park, the residents of Zulu Road were very pleased to recently have their residents connected, except for the fact that they waited well over a year without any fixed-line connection. The most egregious example, however, is probably the suburb of Long Point, which I've spoken about in this place previously. Long Point residents barely have mobile coverage, and despite the NBN Co earlier promising rollout dates and connecting suburbs which are less than 60 metres away, they remain left behind. I recognise, though, that it's not just the constituents of Werriwa who have been let down by this government's bungling of the NBN rollout. Australia's average download speeds have reached 11.1 megabits per second. This leaves Australia ranked 50th in the world for average speeds, behind South Korea, behind New Zealand, Thailand and Kenya. While it's frustrating enough for someone to stream the latest Netflix series or communicate on Skype, this also risks leaving Australia behind while countries such as China and India look to keep their economies on the cutting edge and compete with the success of Silicon Valley. But this will not occur with the current NBN rollout that we've got. This has been compromised by no longer connecting home and business directly to a high-speed fibre to the network and using this second-rate copper wire,
Order.
we have seen